Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in to this webinar. Can you all please raise your hand if you can hear me and see my screen? Okay, so I can see some hands. So, yeah, as I said, welcome to this webinar on Mastering Requirements Management in Tricentis Tosca. Although this webinar is for 1 hour duration, if it might not take that much of time, it's not a very big topic, but it's an important topic within Tricentis Tosca. We will try to stick with the topic today, which is requirements management, which will revolve around the requirements section in Tosca. If you have got any questions, you can raise your hand or you can use the Q&A section to just write your question down, and I will try to answer it within the session. If not, I will reach out to you later on if you have some specific question around this topic or any other topic within the Tricentis Tosca tool. So, yep, we'll get started while people are joining in. So let's go to Tosca and then we will start with the requirements section. Okay, so talking a little bit brief about what is requirements and why it is important and how Tosca tries to integrate this particular feature into its tool, right? So requirements, as we know, any application you are working on or any business for that matter has got requirements, right? Which comes either from the clients, customers, or from the product owners. So all the testing which we do are somehow linked to the requirements of the application. And then the development is also done based on these requirements. And then testing is done to basically confirm that whatever has been developed as a feature or as an application meets the requirements, because that's the ultimate goal of any application which is being built. It meets the expectations of the client, and it meets the requirements of how the product is being developed and how it should look for the end user, right? So every product or every application has got requirements. And as part of testing, it's very important that we link whatever test cases we are building, either be it manual testing or automation testing. There has to be a link to all. I mean, all of the test cases should link back to some requirement. Otherwise, we would never be able to tell whether we are actually covering any requirements if we are just writing test cases and never looking back at our requirements. So there has to be a traceability between your requirements and your test cases which you are developing. And then when you are executing, then also you need to look back at your requirements and see how much coverage you are providing through that particular execution, how much is passing, how much is failing. Because at the end of the day, the testing which you are doing will be marked as successful or not successful based on how much coverage you provide to your requirements, and what is the pass coverage. And based on that, then the project or the project owners can decide whether they want to go ahead with a particular feature being released, or whether the product should be released to the clients or customers based on your pass fail criteria and then your coverage of the requirements, right? So everything ties back to the requirements. It is an essential part of the whole development lifecycle and even the software testing lifecycle, right? So everything starts from the requirements, where we analyze the requirements and then we build our test cases which can cover those requirements. So uh, this is all a background about what is requirements and why it is important. Then coming to Tosca. So Tosca has got a section called requirements, and this is provided to build your own requirements. Okay, and then all these requirements which are built can be easily linked to all the other sections in Tosca. Okay, so all the other sections, which I mean is the execution lists, the test cases, You can even link your test case design. So these are the objects which can be linked to a particular requirement. And then at the end of the day, the product owners or the project stakeholders can come to this requirement section, and they can have a view of your project, how it is going, because it will act as a dashboard for them where they can see what is the requirement coverage, what is the execution state, and how much has been covered through these requirements for the specific project, right? So the requirements section not only holds the requirements for the project, it also acts as a dashboard for the project where anybody can come here and they can see what are the requirements and what is the requirement coverage, current requirement coverage, what is the execution state. So it also acts like a report for all the business stakeholders when they are looking at the automation from a Tosca perspective. Okay, so the requirement section is already there on the menu, right? So if you're not able to see that section, then you can always go back to this section menu, and then you can choose requirements, and that will come up in your screen. So it is also part of the main project which has been created. You can see the requirement section is there by default, like all the other sections. If you create any particular component folder like this, then also you can add your own requirement section inside that, or requirements folder inside that. Okay, so any project which is there inside the workspace, you can create your own requirement section. So starting off with the requirements and how you start working with the requirements, the first thing which you need to do in the requirement section is you need to create a requirement structure in Tosca, okay, which is quite important. When you are working on a real-time project, you should have a structure through which you can design your or you can build your requirements for that specific application. You could be working on multiple projects at the same time or multiple applications. So you should have a structure which will display the actual requirements of that particular application or that particular project, right? So how do you build your requirement structure? So first of all, you should create a folder. Okay, so that folder will constitute of all the requirements for a particular application. So for this session, let's consider this application, vehicle insurance. Okay, so we will create some requirements for this particular application today. So I'm going to call this vehicle insurance. Similarly, you can have multiple folders. Now, how do you want to structure is completely dependent on your requirement, your project requirement. So you can structure it based on the application itself, or you can break it down into different folders based on your functionality, or you can have something like if you are having different releases, then you can build or create folders based on your release cycles. So you can have multiple folders for all the different release cycles, and then you can build your requirements in those folders, right? So how you build it completely depends on you. I'm going to use this as the main project folder. Inside this, once you have the requirements folder, then you create a requirement set. Okay, so all the requirements which you want to create should always be inside a requirement set. So a requirement set is like a collection of requirements, okay, so which contains different requirements. It can hold a different requirements, and you can build number of requirement sets again within the folder. So there are multiple levels of hierarchy between inside the requirement section, and you can structure them as per your project requirements. Okay, so this is one requirement set, as you can see. Now, inside this, we can have multiple requirements, right? So if we look at this particular application, you can see we have got different um, different vehicle types. like automobile, truck, motorcycle, camper, right? So each of them then have their own application flow, right? So every vehicle type will have its own requirements. It will have its own weightage, and then it will have its own test cases, right? So it's good idea to have different requirements for all these different vehicle types. Okay, so inside a requirement set, then we can create some requirements like automobile, and then for camper and truck and motorcycle. Okay, so this is how you structure your requirements. You first create a folder, then a set, then your individual requirements. And then each individual requirement will be linked to its own test cases. Okay, so this is the structure of how every requirement should be built, right? The next thing is coming to weight, right? So there is a column called weight in your requirements. Whenever you create any requirement, the default weight is always 1. Okay, so that's set by Tosca itself. You can always go ahead and change this weight. Now, what is this weight? It's basically the weightage of any particular requirement within the application. Okay, so in an application, every requirement or every functionality will have different weightage, which means it will have different risk compared to other functionality or other requirements. Now, how do you calculate that risk? Okay, so it comes to the business risk. So if a particular functionality fails, then what impact does it have on the end users? So that calculates the business risk, right? And there are multiple factors which can constitute that risk, but this is the whole or the main purpose of defining the business risk or weightage of a particular requirement, right? So not every requirement will have the same weightage. Okay, so for me, the automobile section has got the highest weightage because I think that this carries the most risk in the application, and also it is being used by the maximum customers, and that is why it has got more importance. And if it fails, then it has got more risk to my business than compared to some other requirements or other functionality. Okay, so what I can do is I can have different weightage for each of my requirements. Okay, based on this could be based on either your understanding of the application, or you can talk to your product owners, your project managers on what best weightage could be put on this. This sometimes are also done by the product owners themselves, but if they are not doing it themselves, then the automation testers can speak to them and then decide what weightage they want to put for all these requirements which has been created. Okay, so this weightage you can always change. Initially, when you create it, it is set to 1, but there is no right or wrong or how you set what number you put. It's all dependent on how you want to use them. Okay, so in general, when you create it as 1, and then when you want to increase or decrease, it should be on a scale of 1 to 5. It is just based on some best practice. As I said, there is no hard rule that you should put this number, but you should think like a 1 is like the least weightage and 5 is the greatest weightage when you are trying to weight requirements based on their importance or their risk factor. Okay, so here you can see automobile has got the highest weightage, then the truck, then motorcycle, then camper, right? And accordingly, then the contribution percentage, which is here, will change. You can see automobile contributes the maximum to this particular requirement set, which is 45%. And then depending on the weightage, it will auto calculate all these contribution percentage. Okay. There are some other columns like coverage specified, execution state. These are all gray right now because I haven't linked any executions here, or I haven't linked any test cases. So the coverage specified and execution state are all gray, which means they are by default showing 100% because nothing has been linked as of now. Okay. So this is how you can put some basic weightage with the weight column. Then there is two other factors which can be used to calculate the weightage automatically in Tosca. And these two columns, they represent two different factors. One is frequency class and one is damage class. Okay, so there are two ways of putting weight to your requirement. Either you can, if you know the weight, then you put the weight directly here. If you don't know the weight, you want Tosca to calculate it based on different factors, then you use frequency class and damage class. Okay, so now what is frequency class and what is damage class? So coming to frequency class of a particular requirement is the frequency of that particular requirement being used by the end users in your application. Okay, so any particular functionality which is being used maximum uh, or the most number of times in a particular cycle, or by the analysis of the application, when you do a proper analysis of which part of the application is being most used by your end users, so you can find that out. So that's basically the frequency class. Okay, so the frequency of the functionality being used by the end users, and that will define your frequency class. Similarly, the damage class is basically the damage which it will do if this particular requirement stops working, or there is some problem with this functionality, it's not working, then what damage it will do to the overall project from the end user perspective, or what damage it will do to the maybe to the client, to the customer. So that defines the damage class. Okay, so you have to think from that perspective whenever you are putting these numbers into your requirements. Okay, so for example, as I said, automobile carries the maximum weightage. So I put again frequency class is 5, year damage class is 5. Again, here I always use a scale of 1 to 5 whenever I'm putting these numbers. You have to be consistent across the requirements whenever you are trying to put these numbers, because you cannot put a scale of 1 to 5 for one requirement and then for another requirement you put a scale or use a scale of 1 to 10. You have to be consistent. If you are using 1 to 10 as the scale, then use it throughout all your requirements. If you're using scale 1 to 5, then you use 1 to 5 for all the other requirements. Okay, so there has to be a consistency, otherwise uh, or your requirement coverage and everything would be all over the place. Okay, so here I can then put a frequency and damage class, and then based on my understanding, or based on the information which I receive from the product owners or the business owners, right? So I put these numbers, and then what Tosca will do is it will put some calculation, and it will automatically update the weight of each requirement. Okay, it does it using a formula, and that formula is 2 to the power of frequency class multiplied by 2 to the power of damage class. Okay, so basically it is 2 to the power of 5 into 2 to the power of 5, which comes around 1024. Similarly, the same calculation is applied across all the other requirements. Okay, and that gives you a weightage, which is the weightage of that particular requirement. Okay, and you can see here automobile now has got the maximum weightage because the frequency and damage class are higher for this compared to all the other requirements. Okay, so these are the two ways you can calculate your weight for your requirements. It's important because it then comes back to the framework or the pillar on which Tosca is built on. It is built on basically two pillars of frameworks. One is the modular framework, which it uses, and then the risk-based testing. Okay, so Tosca is built all around risk-based testing, where the testing is optimized to cover the maximum coverage, to have the maximum coverage, and also provide the best possible or efficient risk-based testing. Okay, so you can design your test cases so that it will have the maximum coverage, but the minimum number of test cases which has got the highest risk. Okay, so that's basically which um, implies the risk-based testing which Tosca is built on, and which you can also implement using Tosca for your project. Okay, so it's important to have some weight. Either you have the static weight or you have the calculation of frequency and damage class. Okay, so this is how you weight your requirements. Now, another thing which you can do is for each requirement, if you go to the properties, okay, so here in the properties, you will see, first of all, the status. Here also you can see the status, how much is passed, how much is failed, and what is not linked. You can see here it is showing currently is all zero, right? And 100%, which means it is not linked to any test cases. So that's the status of this particular requirement. There is calculation results, everything is zero right now. And then there is a requirement type. Okay. So by default, for all the requirements, the requirement type is requirement. But if you want to have a classification of your requirements in your project, if you want to have different requirements for maybe different releases cycles or maybe different application types, depends what you want. Okay, so that can be done at a project level. Okay, so how you can do that? You can go to your main project, and then you go to your project settings, and here you can right click, and then when you right click, you will see there is an option called create requirement type definition. Okay, so this will be some additional requirement type definitions, and there is only one requirement type definition right now, which is requirement. Okay, but you can add as many as you require for your project. Just a minute. So yeah, oh, sorry. So you need to go to properties definition. I clicked many times, so it created these many types of requirement definitions. So you can name it, as I said, any type of requirement. Maybe if you can have functional requirements, right? Then you can have non-functional requirement. Okay, so like this, you can create as many requirement types as you want. Right now, you can see I have three different types. One is created by default. The other two I have created, functional and non-functional. Like this, you can have as many as you want, depending on what you want to create, okay, and how you want to define your requirements. So for now, what I can do is I can go ahead and so once we create those requirement types, right? So if we want to assign any particular requirement types, so we need to drag and drop that particular requirement type definition into our requirements. Okay, so go to properties definition and then come here. Okay, so if I want this to be, okay, no, I think it's the other way around. Yeah. So we need to drag and drop the requirement into the requirement type definition, not the other way around, which I was trying. So now I have dragged the automobile into the functional requirement. and motorcycle into the non-functional requirement. Okay. So if I now go back and I look at automobile, you will see the requirement type as functional requirement and motorcycle as non-functional requirement. The other two are just requirement. Okay. So this is just a way of classifying or dividing your requirement into different requirement types rather than just keeping one requirement type. You can have multiple requirement types. So Tosca provides this unique feature. Okay. Um, so this is how you can do all the different requirement types, and then the weightage we talked about. Then coming to the linking or linking the requirements to different object types or like test cases or execution list, right? So we talked about that. Now, how you can do that? So now currently there is no test cases linked here. That is why the coverage specified is not, it's by default 100% not linked, right? That's the status of it. So what we can do, we can go ahead and now link some test cases into our requirements. Okay. So for that, you need to have test cases built for that, obviously. And once you have that, you can directly go ahead and either link one test case or all the test cases. So here I have got a template instance, you can see, which is built from a template of vehicle insurance. I can go ahead, either I can link these test cases individually, or I can directly link this complete folder into a requirement, which is automobile. Okay. You cannot link your test cases to your requirement set. It always has to be to a requirement. So remember that. Okay. So now you will see that the coverage specified will change, right? So for requirement set, it is still not 100% because there are other requirements within this requirement set. But for a individual requirement, you can see it has now dragged it to 100%, right? Now, how is that calculated? So the coverage specified has also got its own calculation, and something will affect this percentage. So let me tell you how. So now if I go back to these test cases, individual test cases, okay, the most important thing in this, whenever you are linking your test cases to your requirements, is the work state of your test case. Okay, so this work state of the test case impacts the coverage specified percentage on the requirements dashboard. So that is why this work state has got three states you can see here: planned, in work, and completed. Okay. Now, every work state value has got a particular number assigned to it in Tosca. So if you set the work state to planned, then it considers it as 20% complete. If it is in work, then it considers to be 50%. And if you mark it as completed, then it is 100%. Okay, so that's how it is assigned in Tosca, within Tosca, and that's how it calculates also. So if currently all my test cases are marked as completed, and that is why the coverage specified is 100%. But if I go ahead and change the work state of one of these test cases to maybe in work, and then I change one of these test cases to planned, then you will see my requirement coverage will change. Okay. So now if I just look at the automobile requirement, you will see the coverage specified went down to 87%. Okay, and 13% is still not covered. So this is the requirement or coverage specified percentage, which means it tells you what number of test cases are already completed, what are still in progress, what percentage of test cases are still not covered or still not completed. Okay, so all of it impacts the coverage specified on your dashboard. So whenever you are completing your test cases, you should always make sure that it is marked as completed. Okay. Now, what is the calculation? So it is calculated based on two factors. One is relative weight, okay, which is again another column, and then that is multiplied with the work state. As I said, different work state status has got different percentage, so it is multiplied the weight and the work state, and then it comes to a number which is the percentage, so it is shown in here. Okay. Now there are some default columns in the requirement section, but there are more columns. You can always go to column chooser and add more columns into this particular dashboard. So I was talking about relative weight, right? So that also factors in coverage specified, as I said. So relative weight is like the weight of this particular requirement compared to all the other weights in the requirement set. That brings out the relative weight. Okay. So the coverage specified is relative weight into or multiplied by the work state, and that will give you the coverage specified. That's the calculation. Okay. Um, yeah, so that's how you link your test cases into your requirements, right? And now coming back to, let's go to our requirements folder. So that's how you link your test cases. The next thing is what you can link is your execution list, so that you get an execution state here. Okay. So for that, you need to have some execution list. Okay, so I've got this execution list you can see here for vehicle insurance, which contains all the test cases. Now, some of them are passed, some of them are failed, some of them are not executed in this particular execution list. Okay, so if I want to link this into my requirements, then I can either link the individual execution entries, okay, one by one, or I can also directly link the complete execution list. Okay. So I can go ahead and drag it into my requirement set. Okay, so that execution list will then be displayed inside the requirement set. Okay, and it is linked to this particular requirement set now. And then you will see a proper state, execution state for your requirements. Okay, now you will see that it is showing the execution state, which is 37% passed, 30% failed, 20% not executed, 13% maybe not linked. Okay, so that's the current state, execution state of your requirement. And this is the coverage specified, which is linked to your test case status, whether it is completed, whether it is planned, or it is not yet started. Okay, so as you can see, overall, this view will give any project manager or product owner the overall status of the current project, automation project, which is going on. So he can see what has been executed, what is the state, and he can also see how many test cases have been created or has been covered as part of the requirements. Okay, so it gives them a complete picture of what is going on currently within the automation project, and they can then take a call based on that, how they want to proceed with the maybe the release cycle, or they want to extend, or they want to not release a particular feature. So it gives them a very clear picture, and this should always be updated based on your current project and what you are currently working on. And that all depends on how you link them and how you um, update your status of your test cases always. Okay. Uh, Now there are some other columns also present within requirements. Apart from, we talked about relative weight, we talked about coverage specified, we talked about execution state, right? So apart from this, also you have got some other columns, okay, which might help you sometimes to uh, gauge what is the maybe what's the requirement. Like we can also add the requirement type here if we have got different types. So there is a column called requirement type. Okay, then there is coverage executed. So what amount of test cases have already been executed. You can also put aggregated weight. Okay, then required test cases, result aggregation, that will be at a requirement set level. If you have also linked test case design, then you can also add this particular column. Okay, so you can decide what columns you want to have or remove any column which you don't want to see here. Okay, so you can see here the requirement type. This is the requirement type, and then we can collapse this. We can see the coverage executed. Okay, the aggregated weight here, and then the test case design. So we haven't linked any test case design, but if you have got your test case design, then you can also link that here. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, I don't have anything inside this sheet because I have created a class here. Okay, it's not allowing me, but generally it is, you just drag the test sheet into the requirement and then it will create a test case substitute link, which will then link the design sheet into the particular requirement. Okay, so maybe you can try and create a new requirement sheet, add some attributes and instances, and then try to link this into a requirement set or into a requirement. I will check why it is not adding, but I will share an update maybe after the webinar on why it was not linking. Okay, but that's how you can also link the test case design apart from the execution and execution list and the test cases. But the most important are the test cases and the execution list because they provide you with the coverage specified and execution state percentage. Okay. So those are all the columns which can be added to the requirement section, and that will provide you with the overall project state. Apart from this, so what else is there? Let me, yeah. So if there are any changes which is happening, maybe on at execution list level or something has changed at your test cases, you have added more test cases or some you have executed a new set of execution entries, right? So in those kind of scenarios, what will happen sometimes if you're working in a multi-user project where multiple users are using the same project and everybody's executing the test cases and everybody's developing their test cases. So the requirement percentages will keep on changing. Okay. And it might happen that you will not have the updated values always in this requirement. Okay. If it is a big project, in those kind of scenarios, there is also an option to update the values. If you don't have the latest values, then you can always right click on the requirement set and you can click on update values. It will throw you this warning that it will take some time based on how big your project is, how many test cases you have. It might take some time, but it usually doesn't take so long. Okay. So what it will do is it will recalculate everything, okay, based on whatever is linked to this requirement set. It will recalculate and it will display you the latest values right here. Okay, so that's how you can basically update your requirements, all the calculations which are linked to this particular requirement. Okay. Uh, there is also a feature from where you can also import your requirements from some external documents if you're working on like a Microsoft Word. For that, you can do is there is an option. Okay, let me see. Okay, so if you go into the folder level for your requirements, right, and you right click there, you will see there is an option import requirements from Word captions. Okay, so this will basically allow you to import your requirements from a document file, but it has to be in a certain structure that you can find out from the Tosca documentation. You can see there is a, a sample Word document which has been provided. Okay, so there you need to have a particular almost different headings for all your different requirements, and then within that you can have sub requirements, you can have some text. So it has to be in a particular format, then only it will allow you to import that particular document, and then that can be used to build your requirements from that external document. Okay. um, so that's how you can import the your requirements from the Microsoft Word into Tosca Commander. Um, what else? Okay. Also, you can create different requirement set links. Okay. So I showed you one way of linking your requirements to your execution list, right? Or your test cases. You what you can also do is you can create these requirement set links, okay, which will allow you to link your requirements to your test cases or your execution lists. So there are two ways of doing it. You can use any of them as you like. Okay, so here, if we look, you can see here, if you right click on the requirement, the individual requirement, there is an option called create test case link. Okay, so as I said, you can do it both ways. Either you can directly drag and drop, which I find it easier all the time. I directly drag test cases into the requirement, but you can always create this test case links. Okay, and then drag your test case into this particular link so that uh, it links the requirements into this particular test case link. You need to rename this, and then you need to link it to the respective test cases. Okay, but as I said, dragging and dropping is the mostly the easier way of linking the requirements to the test cases. But I'm telling you all the different ways or all the different options which are available inside the requirement section. Okay, um, so I think I have covered almost everything which is present inside the requirements section. Um, we are almost on time. So if you have got any questions, then please post it into the Q&A section. This video will be available after the session on our website. And for accessing it, you need to be registered on the website and you'll be able to go through the recording anytime. Uh, so this was the requirements management session where we looked at how requirements can be built, how they can be linked, and how the calculations are done, how the coverage specified is calculated, how the execution state is calculated, how the frequency damage class is used uh, to calculate the weightage of each requirement, and how it serves as a project dashboard, right? So all of these topics are covered inside the requirements management and how it helps you to perform risk-based testing properly. You can always use the print view feature in the requirements dashboard if you want to provide your project managers a real-time view of your project dashboard. If they don't have access to Tosca, then you can always do this, right? So this feature is present in almost all the different sections. You can do it right from here, from the requirement section as well. So you can choose the print view, and then you can direct it to any particular format you want. So it even could be a HTML format, or it could be a PDF, it could be Excel, whatever you want to share, right? So once you export, okay, and then you can open it in HTML. Obviously, it is not the best format, but you can always adjust this if you want. You can put it in Excel and then adjust the rows and columns accordingly to have it like a report for your management to look at what is your current status of the project, mostly the coverage specified and the execution state. Okay. So yeah, that was the last thing which I wanted to say in the requirements section. If there are no other questions, then I will close the session. We are 5 minutes early, but look out for the upcoming webinars. We will be posting it in the website, and you can register for them. They are free, and they will be on different topics within the Tricentis Tosca tool. Yep, there are many sessions lined up, so we will try to also cover the UIA if it is possible. So, but keep looking out for the upcoming webinars. It could be on different topics which are being asked by everyone. Okay, so thanks for joining in, and we'll talk to you guys later on in upcoming webinars, or if you're part of the course, then you can always interact with me individually. Yep. So thanks for all of your time, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.